Okay, yeah, you have the, yeah, nice. Okay, you'll hear.
Okay. हरि हरि बिफले जन्म गुआइनु मनुष्य जन्मा पाइया राधा कृष्ण न भजिया जानिया सुनिया विष खाइनु गोलोकेरा प्रेमाधन हरि नाम संकीर्तन रति न जन्मिलो के ताय संसार विषानाले
Divanishi
दिवानिशिहिया ज्वले जुराते न कोइनु पाय ब्रजेंद्र नंदन जय शचीसुत होइलो से बलराम होइलो निताय दिनहीन जटा चिलो हरि नामे उधारिलो तारा साक्षी जगाय मदाय हा हा प्रभु नंदा सुता वृषभानु सुता जुता करुणा
Karuna
करो
Koro
हे
Hei
बारो
Baro
नरोत्तम
Uttama
दासा कोई
Dasako
ना तेली
Nateli
गुरंग
Guranga
पाए तुम
Tuma
बिन
Bina
के आछे
Kiache
अमारो
Amaro
हरि हरि बिफले जन्म गुआइनु. Probably you can share your screen.
Yeah. Oh, I was not sharing. Sorry about that. It's very nice.
Translation. O Lord Hari, I have spent my life uselessly. Having obtained a human birth and having not worshipped Radha and Krishna, I have knowingly drunk poison. The treasure of divine love in Golok Vrindavan has descended as the congregational chanting of Lord Hari's holy names. Why did my attraction for that chanting never come about? Day and night my heart burns from the fire of the poison of worldliness, and I have not taken the means to relieve it. Lord Krishna, who is the son of the king of Vraj, became the son of Sachi, Lord Chaitanya, and Balram became Nitai. The holy name delivered all those souls who were lowly and wretched. The two sinners Jagai and Madai are evidence of this. O Lord Krishna, son of Nanda, accompanied by the daughter of Vrishbhanu, please be merciful to me now. Narottam Das says, O Lord, please do not push me away from your reddish lotus feet, for who is my beloved except for you? Narottam Das is saying that I have gotten this human birth, such a rare opportunity. It's very valuable and it's also very temporary. And I have spent my life uselessly. Like so much time I've wasted in pursuing material desires and sense gratification, and now my heart is burning the fire of poison of worldliness. Durdeva midrisham ihajani na anuraga. I don't have any attraction for the chanting of the holy name. Holy name has descended from Golok Vrindavan, Golokera Prem, then Hari Nam Sankit. Has all the pastimes of Radha and Krishna are there. And it's like participating in the Ras Leela. But I don't feel any attraction for chanting the holy name. So I'm very fallen, but I have hope. Seeing Jagai and Madai, they were very lowly and wretched. You delivered them. Please be merciful to me now, also. Radharani and Krishna. And you are my beloved. There's no one that can help me besides you. So please show me some mercy. That may I get also attraction for chanting your holy name and for serving you. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. Nice. So Krishna Prem has descended as the chanting of Lord's holy names. treasure of divine love in Golok Vrindavan, which is Krishna Prem. Golokera Prem Dhan. Yes. So when we surrender to Krishna, we get relief from anxiety. It's like when you take shelter from like a scorching fire. When you come, you're being burned in the fire, and when you take shelter in the holy name at Krishna's lotus feet, then you get relief, because that fire extinguishes Bhava Mahadavag Nirvapanam. So the blazing fire of material desires, which is burning us, will die, extinguished by taking shelter. So, as you were saying, Jagai and Madai were delivered. They had done all kinds of sins, and so they were delivered. They had not done Vaishnava Aparadh, they said like that, but they were delivered. And then they promised that they will not do any more sin again. So they were delivered like that. So, okay. Want to read purport of Prabhupada? Okay, let's see. So Narottam Das Thakur is saying, please don't kick me away. Your consort Radharani is the daughter of Queen Rishabhanu Suta Juta. Rishabhanu Suta is Radharani. Juta is what? Rishabhanu Suta Juta. Yeah, so you are together here standing. Narottam Das Kahe Na Theliya. Now I am surrendering unto you. Please do not kick me away. Push me away from your lotus feet, because I have no other shelter. Where will I go? I am just taking shelter unto your lotus feet without having any other means. So please accept and deliver me. So it's an appeal by Narottam Das Thakur, who is very exalted. He is praying to Krishna, please don't kick me away. I'm your reddish lotus feet. I want to surrender to you, reddish lotus feet. You can kick me with your lotus feet, but please don't. Please accept me. So that's what Prabhupada is saying here. And there's another purport. Okay. So Krishna is the only shelter. So please, the pure devotees, they feel they have no other shelter than Krishna. Which verse is that like that? Which is nobody can save you, like said the mercy, one who is ignored by the Lord. Even there is expert arrangement. Right?
Palasya neha sharanam pitmars. Matasya kagdamadhanvati majtam taptasya tat pratividya eham shreshthas tavadibho tanuvritam tvadapekshitanam.
Yes, so there is no happiness in this material world. Yesterday we were hearing Prabhupada, he said there is no happiness in sense gratification. It's dukkhalayam, and with happiness also comes misery. There is no happiness in the material world, and if you feel happiness, that's also a problem. If you feel happiness in the material world, in something other than Krishna's service, then that's also a problem, because that will keep you in the prison house of material existence. So, if you don't feel happiness, that's good. If you feel happiness, that's a problem, because then you will aspire for that happiness, and then you'll be bound in the cycle of birth and death. So, okay, so it's, but you know, it's, we say like that. That's the actual thing. We have to realize it. Okay, so we will read some verses of Bhagavatam. Anything else I would like? We'll take one verse also to memorize every day. Uh, let's see. Should we take some songs to learn, or should we take some verses? What is the? We can take one stanza of a song like that.
Yeah.
That would be fine.
Yeah. Um, which song should we start with? This song or some other song? Maybe you know all this song.
I can memorize this tomorrow.
Whole song?
Yeah.
Okay. And for the rest of us who can't memorize the whole song, we can take one or two according to our capacity. Okay. So we can take this song to memorize. We can also have that in the spreadsheet. We can have a tab
Yeah.
for songs.
I have
You have.
already. Yeah. A tab.
Nice. Okay. And then we can sing this song, right? Whenever, if you know the song, then we can sing. So,
Mm.
and meditate on the meaning and get into the mood of Narottam Das Thakur's mood, what he's feeling. So,
Yeah. And then as you were saying about the senses, I was looking at few verses from 5th chapter.
hmm.
So you can open those.
Okay, let me.
Bhagavad Gita
Uh,
5:21. So if we are looking for some pleasure outside of us, right, externally, then we're bound to be disappointed, because those things are temporary. They can be taken away, and our own body itself may not give us pleasure. But 5:21, liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme.
Prabhupada said like that, right? A spiritualist is one who seeks pleasure
Within.
within, and a materialist is one who seeks pleasure
Outside.
outside, externally, like that he said. So,
And then 5:20.
yeah, and then you want to read the purport here.
Sri Yamunacharya, a great devotee in Krishna consciousness, said, Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna padarvinde navanavarasadhamani उद्यतं रन्तमासे तद् अवधिवत् नारी सङ्गमे स्मर्यमाणे भवति मुखविकाराः सुष्ठु निष्ठिविनं च. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. A person in Brahma Yoga or Krishna consciousness is so absorbed in the loving service of the Lord that he loses his taste for material sense pleasure altogether. The highest pleasure in terms of matter is sex pleasure. The whole world is moving under its spell, and a materialist cannot work at all without this motivation. But a person engaged in Krishna consciousness can work with greater vigor without sex pleasure, which he avoids. That is the test in spiritual realization. Spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. A Krishna conscious person is not attracted to any kind of sense pleasure due to his being a liberated soul.
Next verse,
So,
please.
I mean, when we make choices in life, right? So, as Prabhupada is saying, sense gratification and spiritual realization, we're making a choice. I don't want Krishna, I want this,
Mm.
right? So, we're not choosing Krishna. And, yeah, the next verse of this says that it's a source of misery, this sense gratification. Not only it doesn't give happiness, but it also gives misery eventually. There might be some uh, feeling of pleasure, but it's the ultimate enemy of it. I mean, it will give us misery.
Mm. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more is entrapped by material miseries.
Mm. So I was reading Bhakti Vikas Maharaj book. He says the ability of the body to enjoy is like a water-laden sponge. At first, if you just pinch it, water gushes out. But as it is squeezed more and more, it gradually becomes difficult to get even a few drops of it. Similarly, attempts for sense gratification increasingly results in emptiness and frustration. Still, most people fail to recognize the limits of sense gratification. So, body has its own limits, and ultimately, it will lead to frustration and emptiness because as the sponge is squeezed more and more, how much water can come out of it.
Mm. The soul wants to enjoy unlimitedly, and the capacity of body to give pleasure is limited. So it's an incompatible situation. The soul wants to enjoy and enjoy, but the depend on the body, it cannot give that much enjoyment to the soul. So, and also we say the food of the soul is different from the food of the body. So, Anandam Buddhivardhanam, only spiritual happiness which increases can satisfy. It is ever increasing, and the soul wants ever increasing happiness. So, that only can satisfy the. And another thing, yes, you mentioned, this verse also mentions that after sense pleasure, there is misery also. So, like yesterday, also, I was talking with the same verse with Muru who came. So, it you don't see the suffering initially when you are enjoying, but embedded in the happiness is suffering because it's hidden. Krishna is saying it is in the womb, so you can't see it. And what is that suffering? That suffering is the repeated cycle of birth and death, which also gives you birth, death, old age, and disease. So even if you say, okay, I didn't get any suffering, but the repeated cycle of birth and death, it keeps you in there. So you have to suffer. So Krishna says, Adi and Anta, such pleasures as the sponge is squeezed, the water gets out, then there is an end when there is no more water in the sponge. So it has an anta also. It has a beginning and it has an end. And those who are intelligent, Buddha, then they don't take ramate. They are not. They don't delight in such pleasures which are temporary, which have beginning and end. It is very fleeting, very for very small time. They don't delight in such pleasures, which is followed by misery also. So they just tolerate, and they are saved from the sufferings of the fools and rascals. As Prahlad Maharaj says, Yan Maithunadi Krihamedi Sukhamitucham Kandu Yanena Karayoreva Dukha Dukham Tripyanti Neha Kripana Bahu Dukha Bhaja Kandutivan Manasijam Vishahet Dhira. So they are not suffered, they are not subjected to the sufferings of the fools and rascals. So that's how it's saying. It's like an itch. Desire for sense gratification is like an itch. The more you scratch it, the more it gets worse. If it's an itch and you keep scratching, then what happens? It starts turning red and then it may bleed. So, like that. These desires for sense gratification are never satisfied. They burn like fire, are never satisfied. cannot be, it's the more you indulge in it, it's like, what is it like? Pouring
Pouring ghee in fire.
ghee on the fire. So stop pouring the ghee, then it'll be all right. So
It's also like they say the itch, right? Or eczema. Like if you itch more and more, it gets worse.
yes, that's yeah, it turns red, it maybe bleed after, right? So that is the, then we have to, get happiness somewhere. That's in the spiritual, chanting the holy name.
Yeah.
And then Krishna is also nice verse. You want to read the verse?
And I was also thinking that, you cannot put your legs in both the boats. Then you will not get happiness. You will be in the middle, in the limbo state, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm trying to enjoy also, and I'm trying to worship Krishna also.
That Prabhupada said here in the purport also. He said, spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together.
Right. So we will not get both happiness. Neither material happiness nor spiritual happiness. Material happiness anyways is temporary and is short-lived. So fully surrendered. Once you become fully surrendered, then you can attain that higher taste and bliss in Krishna consciousness.
Yes. And if you can, this is nice verse also.
Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world.
So if we can tolerate those urges and just not act on it, and it will go away, then you can desire and anger. Anger is coming because, why? There's some video by
And the lust is frustrated.
Let's see one video by Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Had something on anger. We just see. Is it okay if I play that?
Yes.
You find that. Recently, you might have seen it before, right? I mean, somebody has posted it. But let's see what Maharaj says. I didn't see whole, so dealing with anger and its agents. Let me see if this is with the sound.
Anger, how to control anger. In order to figure that out, first of all, we have to understand what is anger and what causes anger. The cause of anger is disappointment. When we want something in a certain way, and when it doesn't happen that way, we tend to become angry. Now that again leads to the point that our tendency to control, our tendency to lord over, we try to control, and when things do not come under control in a way that we want, then we become angry. It is not only anger that is the product of our tendency to lord over. There are 5 other considerations, 5 other things that happen, and they are interrelated. For example, the controlling tendency leads us to lust. Lust means to enjoy this world for our sense gratification. With our senses, we want to derive pleasure, and that is called lust. Then lust leads to greed. We want to get things in order to enjoy. And when we cannot enjoy, then that leads to anger. And in this way, we become illusioned, forgetting the real objective of our existence. We completely become bewildered. We lose our sanity. We become illusioned. And then when we see that we are enjoying, we are successful, that gives us the tendency. When we do enjoy, when we do feel successful, then that leads to pride. And when we see that others have something that I do not have, then that leads to envy. So these are the 6 detrimental attitude of a living entity. Lust, greed, anger, illusion, pride, and envy. These 6 are actually the products of the mode of passion and mode of ignorance. These 6 are actually the result of passion and influence. When we become affected by the mode of passion and ignorance, then these 6 detrimental qualities overpower us, and we lose control over ourselves. Therefore, if we really want to overcome these tendencies, then we have to rise above the modes of passion and ignorance. Why do I consider passion and ignorance together? Because they cycle. In the mode of passion, we become active. And in the mode of ignorance, we become inactive. In the mode of ignorance, we become unconscious. With the mode of passion, we're trying to enjoy, we're trying to exploit this material nature, we become extremely active, and then we fall asleep. Like for example, in the morning, everyone wakes up, and throughout the day, being affected by the mode of passion, they become so active, and then at night, they fall asleep in the mode of ignorance. Then in the morning, again they wake up in the mode of passion. They function in the mode of passion, then again merge into the mode of ignorance. In this way, the mode of passion and ignorance cycle, rotate from one to the other. But one has to learn to transcend these 2 modes and come to the mode of goodness.
Anyway, so lust when it's fulfilled, it leads to greed. Lust when it is not fulfilled leads to
Anger.
anger. And when you enjoy, Maharaj was saying, you may become proud also. And then when somebody has something that you don't have, then you become envious. And all leads to illusion also. So, illusion about the goal of life. And so like that, we've heard this before, but nice to hear it as much as we can. Again and again. So,
Yeah, I also read that Maharaj was saying, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, to the extent that a person becomes interested in sense gratification that much, he loses all good qualities. And other place he said that those who refrain from that, they have all the good qualities, and whatever they speak has impact on others. They become bright faced and all they become youthful and not finding exactly where, but all, they have so much energy, enthusiasm, everybody is attracted. because they get all these, nice qualities in them.
Yeah, they are sober. So here, this is very nice purport here. I'll read this. If one wants to make steady progress, and we all want to make steady progress on the path of self realization, he must try to control the forces of the material senses. There are the forces of talk, forces of anger, forces of mind, forces of the stomach, forces of the genitals, and forces of the tongue. One who is able to control the forces of all these different senses in the mind is called Goswami. That's the first verse of Nectar of Instruction. Means there are urges. It's not that he doesn't have the urge. There is force, but he's controlling them. Or Swami. Such Goswamis live strictly controlled lives and forego altogether the forces of senses. Material desires, when unsatiated, generate anger, and thus the mind, eyes, and chest become agitated. Therefore, one must practice to control them before one gives up this material body. One who can do this is understood to be self realized and is thus happy in the state of self realization. This, I like very much. It is the duty of transcendentalists to try strenuously. The words Prabhupada, strenuously means with great effort. The transcendentalist has to try strenuously means with very great effort. To control desire and anger. So you have to work hard, strenuous. What is the meaning of strenuous? Let's see. I think it's like that only. With great exertion, requiring or using great exertion. Yeah. Means with great effort, one should try very hard to control desire and anger. Okay.
Yeah, I can read one thing. In this book, it says that, one who control their senses follow the practice of brahmacharya. It gives good health, inner strength, peace of mind, fortitude, and long life. It helps to conserve physical and mental energy. It augments memory, willpower, clear thinking, power of concentration, and ability to grasp philosophical subjects. It bestows physical strength, vigor, vitality, courage, boldness, and strength of character. And to one who practices brahmacharya, divine knowledge comes as if naturally. His words convey meaning and authority and leave an impression on the hearers. So, all the good qualities, as we are saying, comes to those who are self-controlled.
Nice. Okay. Let's see anything else. This is nice. One whose happiness is within, and who is active and rejoices within, whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme and ultimately attains the Supreme. Okay. Unless one is able to relish happiness from within, how can one retire from the external engagements meant for deriving superficial happiness? So, the reason we hanker for external enjoyment or sense gratification is because we are not fulfilled inside. Prabhupada is saying that. A liberated person enjoys happiness by factual experience. He can therefore sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within. Yogis and sadhus, they can sit in one place. They don't have to go so many places outside, this place, that place to enjoy. They can just sit in their cave or something like that, and then they can or in the forest, and they can experience happiness. Such a liberated person no longer desires external material happiness. This state is called Brahma Bhuta, attaining which one is assured of going back to God and back to home. So, when we attain this stage where we are no longer hankering for external happiness, when we are finding happiness in the activities of devotional service, then when we can go back home, back to God. Otherwise, we are in the cycle of birth and death. We are going to come back again. So that is why we should just, in the yoga system, one of the limbs is pratyahara, is to bring the senses inwards. It is normally the senses are running after the sense objects outside. So pratyahara means to withdraw the senses, like Krishna gives the examples of in the Bhagavad Gita,
Tortoise.
the tortoise. So he withdraws his senses whenever there is. How does he? What is that response to? How does he
How does he
speak?
not engage his senses?
How does he not engage his senses? Yeah. How does he sit? How does he speak? How does he walk? And so, yeah. How does he speak means how does he respond to different stimuli when
Yeah,
people
yeah, that's what. How does he sit? Is this verse is a response to the question of Arjuna. How does he sit?
sit. What is his mentality when his senses are refrained from the sense objects? How does he sit? I think that's what Bhurijan Prabhu says. So, what are we thinking when we are alone? As we heard in one lecture, what is your consciousness when you're alone? How does it sit? So, okay. And how does he walk is what? How does he interact with different things, this world?
Yeah, how does a man engage his senses? So then the answer to that was raga dvesh. But person free from all attachment and aversion, able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom and obtain the mercy of the Lord.
Okay. So when you reach Brahma Bhuta stage, you are very joyful. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Na sochati na kangshati samasarveshu bhuteshu mat bhakti labhate param. In that joyous state, one begins to do devotional service. Of course, to reach the Brahma Bhuta stage, you also do devotional service. And then reaching the Brahma Bhuta stage, you do pure devotional service because you have no material desires at that point in the Brahma Bhuta. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati detan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. You come above the modes of nature to the Brahman state by engaging in devotional service unfailingly. And then when you reach that stage, then you experience, you are very joyful and you have no hankering. I want this, I will get this. Na sochati na kangshati. So basically, you come to the stage where na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim. No wealth, no sense gratification with opposite gender, and no followers. These are the three things. That's followers means subtle prestige, and gross and subtle desires of sense gratification. They are basically the root cause or transmigration. And of course, wealth you want so that you can enjoy. So Mahaprabhu says, I don't want this. I just want your devotional service. These are the three binding things in the material. Kanaka, Kamini, and Pratishtha. As Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says. Kanaka, Kamini, and Pratishtha. As long as you have these desires, then you are going to come back. This cycle of birth and death. So, pratishtha means desire for worship, adoration, and labh, puja, pratishtha, like that it is described. So, that also will go away. Why? Because you feel happy within. Everything is based on happiness within. Then you are not hankering for external respect from others because you are happy from within. You don't need any respect from others. Karma is those things you do because you are unfulfilled inside. You want external things to make you happy. Some person or some things you want to make you happy. external things. Karma are those activities which you do so that you don't feel fulfilled inside, so you want to procure them externally to make you happy. But when you are feeling satisfied internally, then you don't need outside. So this is one devotee was saying that this is how it works. Okay. Correct? Did I say anything wrong?
No problem. And as you were saying about sense gratification, it's like yeah, the fuel. So it's like the person in the car, right? The car has a fuel, but the same fuel cannot be applied to the person. Person has to eat food. So we are spirit souls, and spirit soul is satisfied only with spiritual devotional service, just like fish out of water, right? Fish cannot be satisfied with anything. They only can be satisfied by going back into water. So Maharaj says that sense gratification is simply a perverted reflection of the heart's deepest longing to love Krishna. Actually, we want love of Krishna, but we are trying to seek that love in other places. But the soul is never satisfied.
Yeah, we are trying to substitute Krishna with some other thing or some other person of this world. So we are trying to, but you can't substitute God like that with anything else. Because nobody can take the position of, nobody is God, nobody can give you satisfaction like God gives, Krishna gives. So, but we are looking for that in so many things of this world, in wealth, in prestige, in sense gratification, but it can never get that. So, you either you realize through experience or you realize through hearing. And Lord looking at some people's lives and seeing that how they are not satisfied. Those who have everything, they are not satisfied. And so that's how we learn. Correct?
Correct.
So normally when we are not satisfied within, then we think, oh, how these people are enjoying. Maybe I can enjoy like them. But Prabhupada would cry. Instead of feeling envious, he would cry for them with compassion. So, how these people are going to suffer in this material existence. So that's why Prabhupada says, if you want to go back to God, you have to realize that this material world and material sense gratification will not satisfy the soul. And then, I mean, you can get some happiness from sense gratification, but it is not enough to satisfy the soul, and it leaves you hankering for more, and it keeps you in the cycle of birth and death also. So
Like a drop of water in a desert. It leaves you hankering for more, you become more thirsty. It does not satisfy your thirst, but you become more thirsty.
so Maya has like that lecture we were hearing from Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj. He was saying you have to be tricked. If you don't get tricked by Krishna, then you have to be tricked by Maya. Maya will trick you. And so it's better to get tricked by Krishna than otherwise. Maya is always, we are already tricked by Maya when we are in this material existence, and we are going from one body to the next. We are already tricked. So
It's like if you don't serve Krishna, then you will serve Maya or serve your senses, and then that's the worst, right? The bad masters. Kama adinam kadida palita durnidesham. That all these are bad masters. I have been serving them for so long. My own senses, and other people, but they are bad, like bad master. How much harder you work, he doesn't give you anything in return. He doesn't give you the pay. You're working very hard. So in the same way, we're not getting any satisfaction, happiness. We're continuing to serving those bad masters. So, but now I have realized that you are my master, Krishna. I want to serve you, and serving you, I'll get satisfaction, happiness. So I'm giving up those bad masters.
Correct. Yeah, you have to be in, like those who are very convinced about this. If you are in association with those people, then we will also get that conviction also. And they will convince us also by their, like Prabhupada was convincing by his preaching. The same thing, the same thing. So, yeah, Prabhupada was convincing everybody, and people who were in association got convinced. So, Krishna consciousness means it's convincing our mind that this is, although you want this, but this is not good for you, and this is not good for you. So better not, ask for it. It will not give you happiness. So you have to convince mana shiksha, convince your mind ultimately, and that is how we can save ourselves. Whether somebody else is getting convinced or not, it's not. Of course, if we are in the association of others also who are trying to convince themselves like this, then our conviction increases. But if you are in association of others who don't have this conviction or not, they don't think this conviction is valuable, then your conviction will go down. You will not be able to. So, if you are in the association of others who are trying to, get convinced about this fact that sense gratification will not give happiness, then we will be convinced. So, mostly you find association in which people are always looking for sense gratification. So, in this world, so in that association, we also, cannot get that conviction. So, okay, so. A person engaged only in ministering to the physical welfare of the human society cannot factually help anyone. So just on the bodily platform, if you do some welfare work, cannot help. Temporary relief of the external body and mind is not satisfactory. The real cause of one's difficulties in the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So we have to find out why. Why am I struggling so hard? What is the reason? So then the real cause is that I have forgotten Krishna. What is the verse? Forgotten Krishna. That's why I'm.
Krishna भूलिया जीव भोगवांछा करे पाशते माया तारे जापटिया धरे. In other words, Krishna भूली से जीव अनादिर बहिर्मुखा अतएव माया तारे दिया संसार दुखा.
There is one more verse like that. So yeah. So this is how we are fish out of water. So we are like struggling and this and because we're in Maya, we think everybody else is struggling like me. This is happiness. This is how it should be. Everybody is like morning till night, as we saw in the video. Everybody is struggling in this material world. So we think, yeah, this is how normally life should be. Struggle, 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 struggle. Then save something for retirement and then just die one day. So everybody is doing this. So we think this is how it should be. So, of course, devotees also work, but they work with the right understanding. So this is how it is going on. And when a man is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna, he is actually a liberated soul. Although he may be in the material tabernacle. Means he may be in this material world, but he knows the cause of his trouble and his relationship with Krishna. He's realized that yes, this is then he's just waiting to get liberated. Or he's already liberated in one sense, because he's serving Krishna. Which verse says, in the material world he's Jivan Mukta.
Yasya hridasya karmana manasa gira nikhilashuape vastisu jivan mukta sochate.
So one who is
One
dedicated.
who's karmana manasa gira, engaging his actions, his mind and his words in serving Krishna, then he's already a liberated soul, even though he is living in the material world.
Okay, so everybody has to work, but when we work to serve Krishna, like every day we should think, today what can I do to please Krishna? I mean, the pure devotee is constantly asking this question, what can I do to please Krishna? How can I please Krishna? What service I can do to please Krishna? Of course, chanting, hearing, like that. And then preaching. It's not just ourselves chanting and hearing, but Krishna is an anxiety for everybody else. So Prabhupada says, yes, then you have to tell others about it. To go out and tell others about it, about this knowledge. Give the books out. Prabhupada says, if you want to please me, distribute my books. So we also want to, this is by this we get the blessing. Krishna says, there is no servant more dear to me than one who tells about this knowledge to others. The knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And so in this way we can become dear to Krishna. And we get his blessing, then we can understand transcendental knowledge more and more.
Yeah, and to distribute first we need to know ourselves, right? So as Prabhupada says, like those who are distributing books, they should have read my books, right? Otherwise it's just hypocrisy. So, Janam sarthak karo paropkar. So first make your life successful and then help others.
Yes. We have to read the books, we have to follow. We may not be pure devotees, but still, we are not resentful of the principles. We are trying to follow, and we can give this knowledge out. And by that, giving that knowledge out also, we get more mercy. We get more conviction, more desire to follow. Because now we are speaking this knowledge, we better follow also. So otherwise, nobody is going to take seriously. So that's how we should think. I'm saying I'm preaching to myself. So more than anybody else, I'm preaching to myself. So like that. And we say, oh mind, you fool, like that. How long you're crazy, like that. We can tell, like all this. Okay, so okay, we'll read some verses. It's already 8 o'clock, so let's see. So Vidura wants to know about all the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu. And Swayambhuva Manu has a daughter whose name is Devahuti, and where are the others? Prasuti and
Prasuti, Akuti.
Devahuti. Okay.
Who was Atri Muni's wife? She was also Shambhu Muni's daughter, right? One daughter.
Well, there is Akuti, her husband is Ruchi. And there is Prasuti, her husband is Daksha. And Devahuti, her husband is Kardama. Which Rishi you mentioned, Mataji?
Atri.
Not mentioned. I'm looking at the chart. You can pull up that chart. Not mention Atri. Oh, Atriya is the husband of Anusuya, who is the daughter of Devahuti. So Anusuya is the daughter of Devahuti and her husband is Atri.
Devahuti's daughter. Okay.
Devahuti had a son and also a daughter. So the son is Kapila Dev.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, total 8 daughters, I think she had.
Yes, yes. And Dattatreya also was her son, right? Kapila Muni and Dattatreya both.
Dattatreya is the son of Anusuya.
Anusuya and Atri, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so we'll read the next verse. Then in Satya Yuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to that Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. Here, 2 points are very significant. The first is that Kardama Muni attained success by yoga practice in the beginning of Satya Yuga, when people used to live for 100,000 years. Kardama Muni attained success, and the Lord, being pleased with him, showed him his form, which is not imaginary. Sometimes the impersonal is recommended. One can arbitrarily concentrate on one's mind on some form he imagines or which pleases him. But here it is very clearly said that the form which the Lord showed to Kardama Muni by his divine grace is described in the Vedic literature. Shabdam Brahma. The forms of the Lord are clearly indicated in the Vedic literature. Kardama Muni did not discover any imaginary form of God as alleged by rascals. He actually saw the eternal, blissful and transcendental form of the Lord. So Prabhupada is saying that after his penance, he saw the form of the Lord, which is not imaginary. It's not kalpnik. It is factual. It is described in the Vedic literature. So many verses describe the. Which one? In Brahma Samhita also we have Venum Kvadantam. That verse. Okay. Varapidam Natavara Karnayo Karnika. So many other maybe forms in the we read about Narayan's form. Okay. Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is free from material contamination in his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies. The Lord was clad in spotless yellow silk, and his lotus was fringed with slick dark locks of curly hair. So which form he saw? It's not Vishnu form or the Krishna form. The Lord was clad spotless yellow silk, even Narayan wears, right? And his lotus face was fringed with slick dark locks of curly hair. So there were curly hair on his face, which is also Krishna. In the Damodar Ashtakam it is said, your lotus face, which is encircled by locks of soft black hair, is kissed again and again by Mother Yashoda, and your lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. May this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. Like that something. Or what is the use of any other boon besides this? Okay, so adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc and mace in 3 of his hands. So it's Vishnu form. And a white lily in the 4th. Little different. He has a lily. Normally he has a chakra.
Lotus flower.
Lotus flower, yeah. That's the missing. Disc is there. Lotus flower. Yeah, white lily, kind of. It's a lotus flower, you could say. It's a flower, so it's the same, yeah. He glanced about in a happy, smiling mood, whose sight captivates the hearts of all devotees. A golden streak on his chest, the famous Kaustuba gem suspended from his neck. He stood in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of Garuda. We'll read this verse. The description in verses 9 to 11 of the Lord in his transcendental literal form are understood to be descriptions from the authoritative Vedic version. These descriptions are certainly not the imagination of Kardama Muni. The decorations of the Lord are beyond material conception, as admitted even by impersonalists like Shankaracharya. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has nothing to do with material creation. The varieties of transcendental Lord, his body, his form, his dress, his instruction, his words are not manufactured by the material energy, but are all confirmed in the Vedic literature. By performance of yoga, Kardama Muni actually saw the Supreme Lord as he is. There was no point in seeing an imagined form of God after practicing yoga for 10,000 years. The perfection of yoga, therefore, does not terminate in voidness or impersonalism. On the contrary, the perfection of yoga is attained when one actually sees the personality of Godhead in his eternal form. So it is not like merging or voidness. The perfection of yoga means you see the Lord in the heart. In Ashtanga Yoga, in Samadhi, you see Krishna in the heart. And then you see, oh, he is so charming. Why don't I serve him? And you become a devotee. The process of Krishna consciousness is to deliver the form of Krishna directly. The form of Krishna is described in the authoritative Vedic literature, Brahma Samhita. His abode is made of Chintamani stone, and the Lord plays there as a cowherd boy and is served by many thousands of gopis. Which verse, Brahma Samhita? Chintamani.
चिन्तामणि प्रकरसद्मशुकल्पवृक्षा
Yeah.
लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तं लक्ष्मीसहस्रशतसम्भ्रमसेव्यमानं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तम् अहं भजामि.
Is it the second stanza, right? Second.
Yeah. Second or whichever number, I don't know, remember the number maybe. Ishvara Parama Krishna, that is the first one, right? And then, okay. These descriptions are authoritative, and a Krishna conscious person takes them directly, acts on them, preaches them, and practices devotional service as enjoined in the authoritative scriptures. So we should not doubt, our mind is always doubting. Okay, this is how this is true, and so what then we can say, what do we know? We don't know anything. We are like what Prabhupada says, our situation is like in the well,
Frog in the well.
frog in the well. We even don't know what is right and what is wrong, right? I mean, without Shastra and this thing, everybody has their conception of what is right. Mostly people think like, yeah, as long as I don't harm anybody and I'm enjoying, it is right. It's not right. Why? Because human life is meant for self-realization. And it's not just about enjoying and forgetting self. Then it's not right. Sometimes people say, yeah, now I'm enjoying, but I'm not hurting anybody, so I'm okay. But that's not how it is. You're not giving pleasure to Krishna, so that's why it's wrong. And you're trying to find pleasure independent of Krishna, so it's wrong. So that's why you don't go back to the spiritual world, you stay in the material world. So that is also, the problem. So what is right, what is wrong, and what is sinful activity, what is pious activity, we don't know until we come to Shastra, Krishna consciousness. And then even after knowing, to do the right thing, to follow the right thing, requires so much endeavor and strength and conviction. So it's not so easy. So that's the problem. So that's why we need spiritual strength. Otherwise, even knowing, we cannot resist. Atha kena prayuktoyam
papam charati
Charati
purusha
Purusha.
anichanti vashne baladiva niyojita. By what one is impelled to sinful act as if by force.
Correct. So,
And then
mm,
Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajaguna, Samudbhava. Mahashanu Mahapapma Vidhena Mihaverina. Krishna says it is lust only, which is born of contact with the mode of passion, which is later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of the world.
so lust is pushing us basically to enjoy, even though we know it is wrong, but lust is pushing us. So this is how it is. Where we need spiritual strength and we need superior form of happiness. So if we are not getting superior form of happiness, then we have to increase our devotional activities and do it in the right conscious quality also, and we have to increase the quantity, and we have to seek association wherever it is available. Like we travel so many places, right, to get sense gratification. To get sense gratification, people go to Hawaii and people go to Alaska and so many, Myrtle Beach and so many. They're traveling so much in while looking for sense gratification. So if you're looking for spiritual advancement, you have to find those people who are spiritually advanced and associate with them. Even though you may have to travel a great distance, you have to, like in the story of Anantacharya, he asked, you know, that Parashar Bhatta had a disciple who asked him, what are the qualities of a person who is close to God? And he said, if you want to find out, you have to go to Tirumala Hills on and meet Anantacharya. So he was willing to take that, and there were no buses and anything like that at that time. This is Ramanujacharya's time. There was no so he walked all the distance just because he was so eager for knowledge, for association like that. So he went. So those who are eager, they will pay any price to get transcendental knowledge. Just like during Thanksgiving, you want to go get something, people line up night before. So much effort to get that thing, because it's being sold at a lower price. So that's what we say. Tatra lolyam abhi mulyam ekalam. If you are really eager, if you really want it, something, then you should be willing to pay the price. And that means you should be willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to achieve like that. Generally, this whatever sacrifice. We don't have, yeah, you want to say?
Yeah, I was thinking that nowadays you don't need to travel because all the devotees are putting all their lectures and videos online.
Correct.
So much available just with the click of a button right in your phone. But still, we are not attracted to hearing the words of the elevated souls.
And there is also something about being in the physical presence of the person, because he sees us and we get the drishti of the. That is also there in the environment when you. But yes, now with technology, we have such great blessing that we can hear the wisdom right in our home without traveling and chant Hare Krishna. So, but as you were saying, we are not hearing so much because we are not so attracted. Or you maybe some people are hearing. It's not like that. But there is no time to hear because you are so busy in material activities that there is no time to hear. And unless you hear, you will not become fixed up in devotional service to the Lord. You will not get the understanding that I have to go back. Your desire to stop sense gratification and to and to go back home, back to God, that will not be very intense if you are not hearing. That vairagya will not come also in the heart, because everything is based on hearing. Spiritual life is the first thing. Shravanam starts with hearing. So we have to hear. and see how to. I mean, there will be doubts, so we can ask questions, and then somehow we have to get convinced, and then we can apply this in our life and practice. Okay, so that will give perfection. Not so much knowledge, but the basic practices have to be very strong. Chanting Hare Krishna, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, following the regulatory principles. If these practices are just strong and we follow and we preach, also Prabhupada wanted. So chanting, hearing, reading books, following the principles and preaching, then it'll be very nice if we just get all perfection from this. So we have to go deep. One time Mukunda Datta Prabhu, the Prabhupada disciple in Vrindavan, he had come to our home. He was saying, it's not so much about knowing so many things, it's about going deep into our basics. That's where the basic practices, and that from that you get taste. And when you get taste, then you can counteract the lower desires for sense gratification. So when you get taste through surveys and like that, then you can counteract. You may not have read all the books and everything. I mean, the more, very, very advanced books, which you can read also if you have time and all, but just doing the basic practices properly and nicely. Because that's the foundation of devotional service. So, or sadhana and things like that. So, and then we'll get taste. When Kardama Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because of his transcendental desire, because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. So he saw the Lord in person. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart, naturally full of love of God, with folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers. So he bowed down as he saw the Lord. The realization, we'll end with this, the realization of the personal form of the Lord is the highest perfectional stage of yoga. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where yoga practice is described, this realization of the personal form of the Lord is called the perfection of yoga. After practicing the sitting postures and other regulatory principles of the system, one finally reaches the stage of samadhi, absorption in the Supreme. In the samadhi stage, one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his partial form as Paramatma, or as he is. Samadhi is described in authoritative yoga scriptures such as the Patanjali Sutras to be a transcendental pleasure. The yoga system described in the books of Patanjali is authoritative, and the modern so-called yogis who have manufactured their own ways, not consulting the authorities, are simply ludicrous. The Patanjali yoga system is called Ashtanga yoga. Sometimes impersonalists pollute the Patanjali yoga system because they are monists. Patanjali describes that the soul is transcendently pleased when he meets the super soul and sees him. If the existence of the super soul and the individual is admitted, then the impersonalist theory of monism is nullified. So Patanjali yoga system, Prabhupada says, is actually correct. It is meeting the Lord in the heart through the process of Ashtanga yoga. And when one sees the Lord, then he is very pleased. Therefore, some impersonalists and void philosophers twist the Patanjali system in their own way and pollute the whole yoga process. According to Patanjali, when one becomes free from all material desires, he attains his real transcendental situation. And realization of that stage is called spiritual power. In material activities, a person engages in the modes of material nature. The aspirations of such people are to be religious, to be economically enriched, to be able to gratify the senses, and at last to become one with the Supreme. According to the monists, when a yogi becomes one with the Supreme and loses his individual existence, he attains the highest stage called Kaivalya. which Kaivalya Narakayate Tridashapur Akasha Pushpayate. Prabodhananda Saraswati says, yeah, this is like, it is Narak for the devotee, is this oneness, merging, is like Narak. But actually the stage of liberation, realization of the personality of God is Kaivalya. So Kaivalya, they say, is merging, but losing your individual. But actually Prabhupada says Kaivalya means to realize the Supreme. The oneness of understanding that the Supreme Lord is fully spiritual and that in full spiritual realization one can understand what He is. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Kaivalya, or in the language of Patanjali, realization of spiritual power. His proposal is that when one is freed from material distress and fixed in spiritual realization of the self and the super self, that is called Chit Shakti. In full spiritual realization, there is a perception of spiritual happiness. And that happiness is described in Bhagavad Gita as the supreme happiness, which is beyond the material senses. There is a word, Sukhendriya Atta Endrikam. It is, real happiness is not from the material senses, but from spiritual senses. Trance is described to be of two kinds, Sampragyata and Asampragyata. Asampragyata, or mental speculation and self-realization. Samadhi or Ansampragyata, one can realize by his spiritual senses the spiritual form of the Lord. That is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. According to Patanjali, when one is fixed in constant realization of the Supreme Lord, one has attained the perfectional stage as attained by Kardama Muni. Unless one attains the stage of perfection beyond the perfection of the preliminaries of yoga system, there is no ultimate realization. There are 8 perfections in the Ashtanga yoga system. One who has attained them can become lighter than the lightest, greater than the greatest, and can achieve whatever he likes. But even achieving such material success in yoga is not perfection or the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is described here. Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his eternal form. Devotional service begins with the relationship of the individual soul and the Supreme Soul, or Krishna and Krishna's devotees, and when one attains it, there is no question of falling down. If through the yoga system one wants to attain the stage of seeing the Supreme Personality of God face to face, but is attracted instead to attainment of some material power, then is detoured from proceeding further. Material enjoyment, as encouraged by bogus yogis, has nothing to do with the transcendental realization of spiritual happiness. Real devotees of Bhakti Yoga accept only the material necessities of life, absolutely needed to maintain the body and soul together. They refrain completely from all exaggerated material sense gratification. They are prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulation, provided they can make progress in the realization of the personality of Godhead. So they make all kinds of, engage in penance and austerity to make progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. So, okay, so we can stop here. Any comments? What should we do next? Should we stop? Should we